Alright, there you go, Azu.
Let's see. Do. I wonder why some tracks, the bots are just so quiet versus like the actual track.
Because it's
Like,
very
this
volumes
super
on.
quiet.
Because it's varying volume on YouTube.
No. I mean, like, I'll play it on one.
Oh,
Like, I noticed this a lot. Is like some of these tracks, like the volume of on YouTube versus the volume on the bot is like wildly different. Alright. Well, anyway. Where's this at? I got distracted by this thing. Alright, so continuing where we left off. Of recording tech stuff, which you guys finally actually get to think down. Huzzah! That's it. So a lot of you make your way to where Tinkertown is located, where you encounter a very much impassable outcrop of stone and foliage, where you would normally have no choice to go around to proceed to wherever you are going. However, as Quinn found out the night before, this is just a very powerful illusion that blankets the entirety of the town. So you just have to march right into the wall of stone and right through it, where a town comes into view, as well as an entry point into the large stone walls, where you all proceed beyond the gate and find yourselves in a registry checkpoint with a pair of booths flanking both sides of you, to your left and right. Suffice to say, the gnomes take security very seriously. The 4 receptionists on duty in the 2 booths look a little taken aback upon noticing just how many people are showing up all at once. Though the responders who escorted you proceed beyond the checkpoint without pause or issue, undoubtedly making their way to wherever Matilda previously directed them. Conley also uses this distraction to slip into town unnoticed. As for the rest of you all, however, you are creating quite the stir, especially seeing as one of the receptionists appears to have run off to somewhere in a hurry. Once all of your escort have funneled into town, both Mont and Matilda step up to the window of the booth to the right, where the one receptionist who remains within it looks between the two with no small amount of surprise, before Matilda then speaks up.
Hello. I need to file to have an edit made to my registered name, as well as it is currently incorrect. Also, my sister here needs a new registration form, as does all of those with us. Well, save Brellywick and the commander, of course.
The receptionist quickly, if not somewhat clumsily, retrieves a few sheets of paper, some clipboards, as well as pens, all of which is actually appropriately sized for you all, to your surprise. Quinn, you're a bit taken aback at the seemingly simple stationery you all have been passed, because the clipboard is quite similar to what you have back home, but the mechanism is a lot more refined, making the clamp much easier to open, as seemingly just as secure for what is needed for. Then there's the pen, which you're not entirely sure how it works precisely, as it is not a fountain pen, but it writes well without leaking. In fact, it's almost as if the pen manages the ink for you. With that in mind, it feels somehow more mundane than a fountain pen, and most certainly would not be able to hold even remotely as close as much ink. Though, you get the feeling that this design isn't meant for writing great length, but instead is designed to be readily usable at any time for writing something short and quick. Comparatively, the word convenient comes to mind. As for these forms, they're actually very simple. Requesting basic information regarding who and what you are, mostly, as well as an agreement of consent to have your eyes scanned for their magic security purposes, and how it would be used and stored. Suffice to say, this data looks to be kept under lock and key, so to speak, by the description on this form, only further reinforcing the fact that gnomes take security very seriously. Though shortly after receiving the forms in stationery, see, the checkpoint is all but flooded with guards, all with their rifles drawn. They look to have clearly different equipment than those who escorted you, which Quinn recognizes from the adventure last night. These are actual city guards, and they don't look too happy with you all, especially with Quinn, Robin, and Wandering Wind in particular. With one of the senior security guards in front, a man somewhat higher-pitched voice speaks. You are all under arrest, and you will subject yourselves to questioning and suspicion of connection in aiding the escape of the traitor Roland Conley. His demand is met with a few long seconds of silence, which is very abruptly broken by a loud guffaw from Reinstead, which rolls into a roar of hearty laughter. After which the commander waves a hand dismissively at the guard as he composes himself. That's cute. Really cute, son. Now, stand aside. He shakes his head. The guard shakes his head. With all due respect, sir, no can do, Commander. Until you have been cleared of suspicion, I'm afraid I am under strict orders to detain you and those with you. The commander cranes his neck to Matilda with a large grin while pointing his hand at the guard. You hear that, Maddie? They're actually going to fucking arrest us. Can you believe this shit? He turns his attention to the guard before pointing at another senior guard. How about not? Here's how this is gonna go. You over there, go get whatever asshat issued that arrest order and bring them here. We'll wait. That is a direct order. It is clear that the guard he pointed at looks very conflicted. And just as he goes to turn to leave, the lead guard in front barks at him. No, you will not! Not he, nor anyone else amongst them. They are in no position to make demands. Reinstead cranes his neck to Matilda again with a large shrug. Whoa. It was worth a shot.
Freaking right. Next is the insight, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it conclusion? Intuition, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, essentially. Alright.
Followed by the
You
next
can read that
thing. Yeah, the next two ones, I think. Yeah. And then there's the one line from Eloika too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It would appear, based on your
intuition. I skipped a lot of stuff because it wasn't relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely use the links.
Links.
Because a lot of it is just put into the next dialogue thing. So it's there's no point reading the smaller checks.
Yep.
But that's why I numbered these and linked through them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this one's 20.
This is 23.
Yep, I'm just checking what's 24. Okay, it's literally just these two. It's 20, 23. Okay, these two are the next two points. Okay.
No, like I said, there's a lot in here. I think I skipped 5 different ones. That's why I said to use the links.
Yeah, I am using them.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm basing it on. So 23. Which is... It would appear that this standoff will not be resolved through civil words alone, as the one in charge and a number of them are very determined to take you all in. So simply talking your way out of this likely isn't going to work. This might require a certain degree of threats to avoid a possible fight, as not all of the guards accosting you agree with how this is going. Clearly they'd hoped that you'd come quietly, as they would not place them in a situation they would not place them in a situation with conflicting orders. However, you're pretty sure that some of these guys won't back down with words alone, as they're likely traitors, or know you were in on the jailbreak.
Yeah, some of them are conflicted, the other ones aren't buying it.
This is 24.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the next check. You have no doubt that Matilda intends to lay down the law and reveal precisely who she is, which will undoubtedly garner a mixed bag of reactions. Though you suspect that softening up the guards' morale before Matilda drops the bomb on who she is would very likely help ensure those conflicted before she says anything will just immediately stand down, leaving the traitors and those who technically know or greatly suspect that some of you were involved with the jailbreak as the only ones standing their ground. Though, with having lost the backup of the other guards, these individuals are very unlikely to act, especially if Matilda refuses to back down, which she undoubtedly would do. $25.
I believe this is Antiana
and Quinn.
And then Quinn.
Yeah, in the same block.
Koyami, you gotta read the first part.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah, it's click number 25, and it goes straight to.
Yeah, I had to spit first.
Hehe.
Antiana calls out and addresses the guards minus the senior in there. Hold up there. Not only are you not aware of the full story here, but also your senior officer is not only performing insubordination by ordering the arrest of Reinstead here, who's of higher rank than him. Before all we know, that officer could be in conspiracy to commit treason, which would be a strong reason to get a superior officer out of the way. Thus, his arrest is rather ridiculous and seemingly without merit.
Almost immediately afterwards, Quinn grabbed the attention of the senior guard, speaking with an audible voice heard to everyone present. "Toward lads," he then crosses his arms. "You either let us pass or have the head of the council declare martial law on your asses, and then this gets ugly. There's enough discord amongst you all already. Dissent on what's right. You know that the higher-ups always have something going on, even if you might not know what that something is. Do the right thing that you know is right, lads. Sign the papers and let those higher up than you go, eh?"
The irony is he's correct, just not in the right direction. Because
Yep.
Wendell's just trying to get them to bring him in.
It's like, fuck!
I'm like, you guys rolled good, but not good enough.
Unfortunately. Wait, this was discussion, I just realized.
Yeah, that's why you put it at the time.
Next would be 26.
I'm thinking of them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's...
As Eloic raises an eyebrow at this scene that's developing here, looking across all the new arrivals before slowly raising a hand in their directions. Far as I'm concerned, you're gonna need a real good reason to be making such bold accusations here. Even little seamstress like me knows Reinstedt's done a lot of good for us all. I'm sure it's even more so for the lot of you, right?
I think, 27's next?
Yeah, this one's narration again.
Munch.
Yep, 27.
Alright. Upon Etienne's comment, it is clear that a good bit of the guards now look to be visibly conflicted as well, as it's hard to deny that the adventurer did make a good point. And without skipping a beat, Quinn tosses his own argument into the ring, which causes a few of the guards to lower their weapons. However, upon Eliwick's comment, a number of them get pensive looks, as if they're carefully considering your words. Though once Eliwick finishes, on the ring, the wind speaks up while crossing his arms. Also, if we were genuinely concerned about the legality of our being here, would we really just have waltzed in through the front door like this? Robin then points her pen at the clipboard in Tabax's hand.
And registering ourselves through the proper channels, no less.
When the human woman finishing, the senior guard that Ryanstead gave his orders to looks to the lead guard at Costnial speaks up. They do make some good points, and I'm not so sure it's wise to be calling that human man's bluff. He points to Quinn. The lead guard scoffs at this before looking between the other guards as he responds.
Have you already forgotten why we are here to detain them? Conley was arrested by Internal Affairs due to irrefutable evidence that he and his cohorts were actively working to undermine the Council by compromising their positions. However, they were clearly waiting for something to happen first before enacting their plan. They were scheming.
He then gestures a hand towards Malthus as he continues.
Considering how close Conley was to Malt's sister, is there really any wonder why the head of council just so happened to return early and not long after Conley's capture, no less?
He then gestures a hand towards Quinn, Robin wondering.
And we know by virtue of no small handful of eyewitness accounts that at least these three, as well as the commander, all helped break Conley out from his high security cell. The writing is on the fucking wall, people. Their authority does not matter, as they are clearly aligned with Conley, who we know to be plotting against the council. Not to mention, some of these people are guilty of not only aiding in an escape, but killing several individuals and causing no small amount of property damage on their escape.
He barks at the others before looking back to me.
So do not be taken in by their honeyed words and threats that will not come to fruition, as their actions speak louder than words, and their actions have spoken very loudly last night. So we are to take them in and see to it that the guilty parties answer for their crimes against our people's fledgling establishment.
At the lead guard's words, those who looked to be conflicted prior harden their expressions and raise their weapons once more, before the lead guard pauses for a moment to train his gun on the commander.
Now relinquish your weapons and come quietly. I will not ask again.
Quinn. He cannot help but inwardly wince a bit at his words, as this man is absolutely correct. Looking from the outside in, last night's moonlighting left you all with some really bad optics. Suffice to say, while you all have put in clearly a dent in the others' morale and sowed seeds of doubt, the lead guard is both very charismatic and well-informed. Suffice to say, this is going to take more than persuasive words. Though, Quinn is certain that Matilda is waiting for you all to damage their confidence and cast doubt on their orders before making her move, so that her sledgehammer of truth has the best chance of shattering whatever remains of their resolve in their action. And sure enough, after the lead guard finishes, Matilda steps forward to stand before you all, where she then draws her daggers, causing all of the guards to train their weapons on her as she speaks up in a firm tone.
I am Magitech Operations Specialist Matilda Deskadengna, granddaughter of the late Special Forces Commander Herod Deskadengna, as well as the current sitting head of council.
The seams on her bodysuit begin to glow with soft blue light as she points her right weapon at the lead security guard.
There is a grand conspiracy at play within these walls, one that is directly responsible for the premeditated sinking of expedition vessels Explorer 1 and Explorer 2, as well as Explorer 3, due to the sabotaging of the core while my sister was resting, which led to the catastrophic loss of life sustained below deck, due to the orchestrated sealing of the bulkheads to all the lower floors, dooming the overwhelming majority of we tinker gnomes to watery graves, myself included.
The woman casts the guard a glare.
As head of council, I hereby order you to stand down, and then for you to personally retrieve whomever issued this arrest order. Refuse, and I will assume you to be in league with the conspirators and kill you where you stand, as well as everyone else who would see that justice for our fallen kin be impeded.
The dagger in her right hand begins to violently crackle with lightning magic before she continues.
You have 10 seconds to comply with my order, and for the rest of you all to return to your posts.
Suffice to say, the moment she finishes, every single guard immediately stows their weapons before briskly taking their leave of the registration checkpoint, leaving only the lead guard, who takes a deep breath and then lets out an exasperated sigh as he also stows his weapon.
There's exactly one person who could operate the magitech of those daggers and that armor, as they were made expressly for her and no one else.
He then turns and begins making his way out of the checkpoint as he continues.
I'll be back with the major here shortly.
Once he leaves the vicinity, Wondering takes a look around before offering a small shrug. Well, that certainly went better than expected. All Winding commented that
The overwhelming majority of the guards had their reservations about their orders after you all said them, though adding Matilda's revealing herself on top of that. And they wanted nothing to do with us.
Evelyn crosses her arm in small friend.
Although there were a few of them that did hesitate briefly before leaving, as they were waiting to see what the rest of the guard would do upon following suit.
Biggs points out the Dendori agent candidly as it comes to this.
I would wager that they were probably the ones that I noticed were ready to fight, provided enough of the uninvolved stayed, though you all scared the pants right off every last one of them, not with them, so they booked it out of here too.
Matilda offers a small frown at this.
It does not matter. They were all just small fish anyway.
Archer shrugs at that. True. You all then proceed to wait until the senior guard returns, which isn't more than just a few minutes. And when he does, he is accompanied by what looks to be a rock gnome woman with shoulder-length, straight black hair, who upon noticing you all, waves a hand dismissively at her escort as if shooing him away, to which the guard takes his leave. Once he is out of sight, the woman turns and approaches you all as her green eyes scan over each of you behind a pair of large circular glasses, which she then reaches up to adjust before offering you all an evident frown as she reaches you. Most of you actually recognize this woman from the trial, as this looks to be Major Wendell, though you immediately notice she's now has a scar by her left eye, and that her left eye is actually a false eye, likely magitech by the looks of it. However, that's not the only thing you immediately notice about the woman, because with her now wearing lighter warm weather attire, you realize that this woman is muscular, very muscular. In fact, granted, her actions and weapons she wielded in the trial suggested as much, but now that you actually get a good look at her up close, you realize just how strong and imposing this little woman really is. Because as far as gnome women go, Wendell looks to be probably the last one you'd ever want to piss off. Which, judging by the look she's giving you all, she already is. which is made all the more clear as she practically throws an arm out towards you all as she speaks up. Does the word subtle even fucking exist in your people's goddamn vocabulary? She crisply points a finger at her head as she continues. Did it seriously not cross into your pea-brain minds that the suspiciously quick action against you by an obvious overreach of authority might have had someone trying to contact you from outside of the public eye? Anduin brings a hand to his chin as he commented, you know what, now that she mentions it, they did respond kind of quick, didn't they? Wendell Meemer's yeah, almost like they were fucking waiting for you all, huh? Einstead gives a slow, innocent shrug at this. Oops. At this, the woman points right at the commander. Don't you fucking oops me. Also, you straight up left me at the dinner party last night before gift wrapping the mother of all shit shows for me to clean up. She waves a hand dismissively before looking to Quinn, Robin, Biggs, and Lucky Day. And you four make it really hard to be one of the baddies when I have to cover your asses. Angela then roughly holds up a pawn. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. Since I'm already here and backstabbing is apparently in season around here, I think I'll just do the same, as I am not going to be the one to be the bearer of bad news that Matilda apparently isn't dead. Oh, and she's actually the head of council and not Malt. The woman makes a big X with her hands. Hard pass. I'll just play my hand right now instead. Then crosses her arms. I'll be with you all for the time being, as the conspirators are going to want my head on a platter just like Reinsted's. Albeit not to the same degree, but you get the idea. Wendell.
That still cracks me up.
What's that?
This is how pissed off she is. It's like,
Yeah.
all of us bombed that fucking role.
Yeah, every one of you did. Even the NPCs fucking bombed it. Nobody picked up, hey, I think someone's trying to contact us. You know, kind of get us out of the public eye and
In
speak
our
with
defense,
us.
in
No,
our
nobody rolled high.
In our defense, it's a slight leap considering the circumstances we're in.
No, I just think it's funny that nobody rolled high enough. But you rolled high enough to scare the shit out of the guards. So, Angel just showed up like, well, this isn't how I planned it, but it works the same. We have you alone.
So let's go with this option then.
The exact opposite of how she wanted it done. But the end result is still the same.
It's like mission failed successful.
Yeah, task failed successful. Hey, what number are we at? Where did I have my list?
28.
Yeah, 28. Eliwick accidentally being over-friendly with a military field officer.
As shortly after this, Ella gives Wendell a big smile, and she walks up to the large little woman and reaches out a hand. Well, before we're losing an insider, I'm glad to have you on the team, Major Wendell. A group stands stronger together, they say. I'm Eliwick, by the way. Eliwick Hambellion. Pleasure to meet you.
And then I think the next one's immediately
Yeah,
after.
it's Quinn.
Yeah. What's
Yeah,
Major?
it's the next two.
Yeah. Once Major Wendell and Eliwick finish, Quinn gives a bit of an awkward nod in her direction. Whoops. Apologies for being blind to your plan, Major. Considering last night and the gigantic shit show it left behind, can't blame if you're left a tad stressed. However, we've got a plan in place, and it's good to have you, assuming you're truly on board. Considering this entire town's a festering den of traitors with some good eggs mixed in, it needs a bit of a cleansing. Anything else of weird going on around here that we should know of, or should we get cracking? Was the next one also a part of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Fucking Archer.
Not even close.
Quinn, realizing that he didn't tell anyone uninvolved about the previous night's shenanigans, he responds to Eliwick.
Mentally, yeah. Because,
oh yeah.
Whoops. via mental channels, like, oh shit, that's right. About that, lass. Matilda over there dragged me for a little scouting mission to get Conley out of captivity. But things turned out to turn to shit, and the fan spread across the entire town. Was Reinstead decided to haul ass out of the very town. He was effectively in deep cover. If you see broken dam walls and whatever else damage, that might have been us. Nearly fucking died right there and then too, but I guess it was a good cardiovascular exercise. My heart got a lot stronger from all the bloody close shaves we've had hauling all out of there.
That's it. The next response doesn't really make sense because it happened prior, so
Wait.
we can skip that one. Because I did it as the guards were accosting us. So that's a derp.
Yeah, so next is 32, right?
Although I can just say, good grief, there's near a dull moment with you loony bunch of heroes, is there? That would apply. I gotta continue.
Yep. Wendell returns Quinn's nod with one of her own. Rather than letting out exasperated sighs, she finishes.
Nothing has gone as planned these past 6 weeks, so suppose this is all par for the goddamn course at this point. Though I'll get to that later.
She then looks to Malt.
It would appear that you have brought quite the motley crew back with you, Malt.
The woman then adjusts her glasses, takes another look at you all, commenting on each of you as she does.
We have a Fontaine Tabaxi, as you're way too fucking big to be a Marine in Tabaxi. A notable Dimdoria doodle, Biggs, if I'm not mistaken, a fucking pirate captain of all things, a pixie who is trying to keep themselves hidden, Zana's granddaughter, a seasoned treasure hunter, a former living legend now miraculously living again, a seeming Huimang socialite whose weapon and demeanor suggests otherwise.
Rather than double takes at Orion.
Is that a fucking snow elf? Well, half snow elf. Regardless, since when do you people ever leave your forsaken winter wonderland all the way as hell's up north? I mean, sure, Miss Agita over there is also a snow elf, but she's a fucking House Pandora agent, so that's not... So that also tracks.
And then points at the witch. What? Oh, what is it?
Winter Wonderland.
Yeah, Winter Wonderland of Death.
Sorry, go on.
It's only
points at the
polar owl bears.
Yeah, polar owl bears, fucking white dragons, all sorts of just, lovely friends.
I will come and break your fucking face the moment we meet a fucking polar owl bear, Yami. Because that was your suggestion.
Yeah, it came out from a fucking Merlin joke that, it makes sense that there would be this, so...
Yep.
Wouldn't be the first time you guys joked about something serious. And it happened.
No,
Unfortunately, yes.
always the
Alright.
master of this.
Alright, so Wendelin points at the witch.
You, however, you do not. Though I assume that is quite the story for another time.
Major then stops at Quinn.
And lastly, someone who should be behind a desk back in Huimang. Though first things first.
Quinn's taking off her uniform jacket as she walks up to Matilda, leaving the Major in a sleeveless undershirt, which goes far to reinforce just how much this woman is built like a tank. Whatever that is. Linda then reaches up to hold her jacket over Matilda's head before dropping it on the other woman.
You need to keep out of sight of civilians, at least for now anyway.
He then returns to Quinn, extending up a hand towards him.
Major Daisy Wendell, call me Daisy and I'll go fetch a stepladder just so I can break your fucking face. Also, we should get cracking, yes, as this is no place to be discussing sensitive matters. So if y'all would follow me, that would be grand.
I can't wait, for someone to be drunk and just accidentally call her Daisy. She actually goes and fucking fetches it.
You know,
You know what? So I can reach your face.
That's what that's what's on Indiana's mind on the way out or whatever.
Yep.
Like, how to
Just
get your
'cause
ass kicked in 2 easy steps.
Just because Val's a cheeky little bastard.
Val just runs away on the fucking room. Wendell fetches like a fucking jetpack or some shit.
Oh no, not on the broom. Just portals out of there. Like, so long, Daisy.
Wendell fetches a fucking portal device that's like a band that goes to the hells. Oh, I'm fucking coming for you.
It just
Double
reopens
shotguns.
the portal.
Yeah, like a fucking Doom guy.
Alright, so I think we're at...
33, this is, Emmy.
Yep.
You notice that when Wendell regards you as the granddaughter of Zana, she does so very matter-of-factly, of simply stating who you are. Though you find it curious as how informally she refers to your grand, which greatly suggests that Wendell is very familiar with her. That, or she doesn't have much respect for her. You're sure it's one of the two, but it's hard to say which, as you don't know this woman. Though you notice when you extend a hand for a shake, she regards you with a sense of curiosity, and now some degree of confusion as well. The look she gives you is almost as if she's thinking, why are you doing this? Almost as if to suggest that you're doing so is somehow a breach of some sort of etiquette that you are not aware of. Which might be why she didn't say anything either, now that you think about it. And it's like, I'm gonna tactfully and then just ignore that. When she notices Lillian, she dons a somewhat unamused look, albeit only very briefly. Considering pixies are known to be pranksters and troublemakers, you can easily say why someone like Wendell would think, oh great, a pixie, or something along those lines. All in all, Wendell seems a bit annoyed, though eager to continue, as if she has a lot to say, but cannot say it here, probably due to the public setting.
When the socialite like sup to a high-ranking military officer.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing?
Next is Quinn's insights, I think.
I believe so, yeah. Inciting Wendell.
Yeah, Wendell and
No,
things that
this
Wendell
one.
said. Yeah, you can. Yeah, Quinn. You can only assume that this is an inference. There we go. An inference to the internal purge that happened about that time, meaning that the deep cover agents have been on the back leg ever since it happened, which suggests they lost critical connections and most, if not all, their other undercover agents. Which would explain this godly meet and greet taking place, as the conspirators were likely very confident that they got all of the Molten plans. However, what they weren't expecting was the presence of deep cover agents who have been under their noses for very likely years or even decades. So, with both Reinstead and now Wendell's betrayal, and revealing themselves to have been deep cover, there's going to be an internal witch hunt to find who else amongst them is deep cover. Because one person is a fluke, lacks in judgment, but two deep cover agents at roughly the same time, that's a plot. However, the foreign godly visitors are a little preoccupied presently with the bombshell that Sophia just dropped in the cosmos, causing a
Like,
major
they need to get on this shit right now, but they're a little distracted.
Yeah, a little bit. There's kind of there's a stack of papers dropped on their desk, like, address this now. However, the foreign godly visitors are a little preoccupied presently with the bombshell that Sophia just dropped in the cosmos, causing a major upset in the power dynamic between gods and chronomancers. Now there are hundreds of chronomancers per god being like, hey, give me my freaking reparations.
Yeah, unironic reparation.
Yeah. Suffice to say, the tide's about to turn in your favor, heavily. And then I think it's the next one as well.
Yep.
You also notice that, unlike with the rest of your companions, Wendell seems to acknowledge and address you with a bit more respect than the others. You get the feeling that the Major doesn't interact with civilians that much, as something about her demeanor and what you saw of her during the trial greatly suggests workaholic. In fact, you are somewhat reminded of Olivine as you watch this woman, only much more rough around the edges, so to speak. So, when on the clock, you imagine it's very rare for civilians to even address Wendell, let alone greet her, or even less still, often offer a handshake. So, based on her apparent military rank, she is what looks to be a field officer, so a boots-on-the-ground leadership type. Which, judging by her physique and her being an artillery specialist, checks out. So Wendell appears to be a bit taken aback at Elwic's audacity to not only address her, but to also greet and offer a handshake. You imagine if this were any other situation like this, Elwick would have gotten a tongue lashing from Wendell about the etiquette of not bothering field officers on duty, as they are only ever exactly where they need to be at any given time while on duty. However, since Wendell can't do that due to special circumstances, she almost seems unsure what to do. So she appears to have objected to simply ignore Elwick's greeting, is your best guess. Which would also mean that the reason she's more affable to you than to anyone else here is because your organization is military intelligence and special operations. So both as a professional courtesy and out of respect, as when looked at with a side-by-side comparison, you would technically outrank her as spymaster. And as handler, you are a high-ranking field officer in all but name. Only you handle intelligence personnel. Whereas Wendell here would be battlefield logistics. So the next step here below you, right below you, comparatively speaking. Either way, your rank is definitely not lost on her. Because while it's much faster to go up in ranks as military intelligence due to merit playing a heavy role in promotions, it's also much more dangerous than standard military service as well. Next is 36?
Tinkertown.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no. Is it 36? Or 35?
I believe it's 36 because there's nothing else. There's just that retroactive check in 4th tab.
Yeah, 35 is Elwick's short thing, and then 36 is continual to Tinkertown, I think.
Yeah, so
I heard that as Elwick Shardy, and I'm like, what?
Here, let me see.
Not quite. Yeah, 35 is you, Emmy, and then 36 is narration on the Tinkertown.
Yeah. At the seemingly nonplussed reaction from the major at the apparent faux pas, Elwick simply retracts her hand with a nod and polite smile before speaking. Apologies. I mean, disrespect. She remains silent to listen. As Wendell goes down the list to mention a hidden pixie, Elwick tries to look around with an expression of confusion. Clearly something to be inquired into later, among other matters. Getting to know this military official and how to correctly interact with her might prove a challenge. At the Major's request, Elwick gives another nod in her direction before moving to follow. Right on. Lead the way.
So, with the Major requesting you all to follow, she begins making her way out of the registry checkpoint and into the town proper. Once you follow her in, you find that you're immediately met with quite the sight of the town, from your west to your south, as well as quite the view of the sea from your east to southeast. It becomes immediately apparent that this settlement was built atop a natural low-elevation plateau, where parts of its east side were reshaped into smooth gradient slopes, that go down into a natural harbor, which the gnomes have also reshaped to their needs, making the settlement into a proper port town. A pretty
Seaside town.
I hate when I fucking go between different channels. It throws my wherever the fuck I am, like way the fuck out of where it should be.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
It happens all the time for me.
Huh.
Alright. Suffice to say, if you were to build a settlement with plans for future growth in mind, this would certainly be the ideal place to do it. Though, anyway, you know how this port was not nearly this developed when you and your parents' ship disembarked from Marina about 2 months ago, meaning that most of this infrastructure is very new. Quinn, you didn't get a good look at the port as you and the others ran through it last night, but now that you are, and from a higher elevation looking down into it at daylight, you can clearly see that this marvel of arcane and magitech engineering for what it is. Fucking impressive. Because while it may not be nearly as large as South Hoimong's port, it is much more sophisticated. In fact, you see what look to be cargo trolley tracks heading from the cliff side towards each of the 3 ports, which suggests that all of the city's major industry is down below your feet. With that in mind, you take a look around the port for any evidence to support this, such as smoke vents. Though you soon find, to your confusion, not a single puff of smoke anywhere, save for the chimneys of the homes up there on the plateau. Though what you do find is admittedly puzzling, which is 2 sets of massive vents blowing out what look to be steam near what is very clearly the primary entrance to Tinkertown proper below. Though you do a double take at what you find there, which appears to be a waiting area in front of trolley tracks, the implication being here a passenger trolley, or as it was once called in the time of the Crystal Capital, a tram. Though this was sadly one of the handful of civilian-grade technologies that were lost during the evacuation. Both due to the suddenness which it happened, and the infrastructure being too big to take with. So it was all left behind and destroyed, leaving Magitech engineers of the present day still trying to reinvent some of the tech that was lost. Presently, the major bottleneck is fuel, as there is no current power system that can operate something like what you're looking at below. You recall in the last report from Han that Malt had made a major breakthrough in her lightning core theory, when she was able to artificially dismantle an operational lightning core, something neither you or Kyon had ever heard of prior to Han's earlier reports after meeting up with Malt for the first time. You have heard about rumors of arcane cores floating around with unknown origin, though the organization could never get their hands on one of these rumored devices, which in hindsight makes sense. It's gnomish technology, and gnomes take security very seriously. You make a mental note to ask Malt more about these things later, as these questions for another day, but interesting questions all the same. Once the view sinks in for you all, you then notice the port is rather bustling. In fact, there are 2 of what look to be large trade vessels docked in the port presently, which would explain how busy it is down there right now. Though much of the hustle and bustle of the port doesn't quite make it up to the plateau where you all are, making the surface settlement almost feel as if it were part of a completely different town than the port a few dozen meters below and away from you all. Because looking to the west, you find Wendell patiently waiting for you with a somewhat amused look to her, as if she had expected you all to pause where you were to then look around, which is exactly what most of you did. Where she then turns to continue, and you all actually It's like she knows that these guys are going to stop and look around because the view up here is really cool. So she anticipated that.
Yep.
As the surface of Tinkertown is very impressive.
It is a cool view, so.
Mm-hmm.
Now I gotta scroll down again to where the hell I was. I just kind of threw it off somewhere. There we go. Not more than a minute or two of those of you. It's not more than a minute or two that those of you new here come to realize that the surface settlement proper is equally impressive as the port, albeit in its very own way. Because as you are entering, you find that the town blends damn near seamlessly into the forest that has been built into, almost as if the gnomes had gingerly brushed the forest aside just enough to allow their buildings and infrastructure to fit without disturbing the local flora too much. Which makes one thing abundantly clear. Forest gnomes do not conquer the elements of their forest homes. They live in harmony with them. It's like you're walking through a forest. There's just buildings and roads.
Yeah, it just all mingles together.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to our Minecraft world.
What do you mean, Minecraft? You clear everything out of your way.
Everything just goes away.
I'm joking.
I've gotten so far as to make it so my structure in Minecraft was literally floating several blocks above the ground level as a security system against fucking creepers. I accessed it by swimming up a waterfall that I made on the structure.
Because physics, who needs that shit?
Mm-hmm.
Are you implying that it's physically impossible to swim up a waterfall?
No, I mean your place being held up by a waterfall.
No, it's held up by nothing.
Technically, it would be held up by a waterfall because that's the only thing physically touching it in the ground. But yes, flowing water holds it up.
And the fact that I like how you're not even saying anything about the physics of swimming up a vertical waterfall.
We don't even get to that yet. It's the waterfall existing. Shouldn't be there. We don't even get to the swimming part yet.
Yeah, but it's also Minecraft. Yeah, but there's no. But all the gravity only applies to gravel in Minecraft. You're forgetting that.
True.
And sand. And sand.
And sand, true.
Right.
It also applies to water and lava, technically.
Yeah, only partially. Because the top remains wherever it is.
Also, I pour one bucket of water, creates an infinite water source.
Physics, yeah. Who needs that shit? Well, anyway, continue. So, yeah. Forest homes live in harmony with nature. Because not more than a few inches away in any direction from the paved stone road, the forest floor continues on its merry way unabated. As if the floor you walk were a natural fixture, such as a creek or a stream. But you sense the presence of magic everywhere around you. But it is unlike anything you have ever perceived, let alone actually sensed. Because this isn't arcane magic, no. Every last little trace of magic around you is all divine in origin. Almost as if the very goddess of nature herself had personally bestowed her blessing on these people, allowing them to use her power freely and without reservation in their woodland home. A gift that would turn even the most pious of elven druids green with envy. Because just as your mortals do, gods also play favorites. And suffice to say, you just found the grass speaker's favorite mortal race, without question. You almost shudder at the thought of just how much raw power a forest gnome druid would wield in a woodlands environment with this degree of blessing. Continuing onward for another minute or two, you come upon what looks to be the upper class housing of the surface settlement, right on the edge of the plateau, overlooking the port and the ocean below. Not far ahead, you spot a home that stands out from the others, as its shape is very plain. However, it's a bit larger than the others' homes too. However, very quickly find out why. Because where the neighbors had opted to have yards, awnings, and other staple luxuries one would find surrounding a home of this class, this homeowner has used damn near every square inch of their property for the home itself, making the structure very, well, cubicle, to say the least. No doubt making the very most of the space that the property was afforded to it. So, it is of no wonder when Wendell turns towards the building and begins approaching the door of what is clearly Malt's home. Like, one look, Quinn's like, I know who owns this building.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's not a hard conclusion to draw.
Nope. It's like, this is an engineer's home. Yards, awnings, fucking barbecue pits. We don't need that shit.
Yeah,
we need
don't
space.
need that block.
Block with lots of room for shit and
It's literally just a block because of
it's a 3-story block. 3-story high block of building.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Quinn's like, I wonder who owns this thing. Like, Vision just kind of trails over them all.
With Malt like climbing up ladders on like attached to the freaking walls. Like, yeah, that checks out.
Once cleared Malt's home, where you find not one or even two, but a small handful of armed dwarven security guards turn your way and move to bar your path forward. You can tell with just one look at these guys that they are not locals, meaning that they must be private security contractors, and from the Dwarven Kingdom, no doubt. Very likely one of a handful of shifts, too, probably. Quinn, this actually gets a small smile out of you, because you see exactly what Malt did here. By hiring private security contractors in her official capacity, as the head of council, who are not locals, these guards could tell everyone in Tinkertown, even Reinstead and Conley, to piss off before forcefully escorting them from the premises if they refuse to leave. So considering that they have clearly given clearance to use top-of-the-line gnomish Magitech technology by one look at their gear, it really says everything you need to know about these guys and their past reputation as contractors. In other words, these guys are the real deal, professionals that take their occupation very seriously. And who couldn't be bought with 12 king's ransoms, because in the business of high-profile private security, trust is everything. So having a good reputation is priceless in the business. You'd wager that just one of these guys makes more money in a single tour than you'll ever make, hell's ever even see in your lifetime. Because you know precisely who these guys are. These guys are Castle Rock Security Solutions, or the CSS, as they're better known by organizations like yours, as they are the gold standard in the PSC business. Because leave it to the dwarves to be really stubborn bastards about standing your ground on principle. And that's before the incentive of a hefty commission fee. The fact that they are not private military contractors is a critical distinction of why the CSS is a royal pain in the ass to be on the other side of. It's because they are a legitimate business operating under Dwarven law, meaning that their bottom line answers to the man, and that man being the Dwarven King, who they must pay a pretty copper coin in taxes to. So it is not a stretch to say that these guys, and other businesses like them, in different fields, are golden geese for the royal coffers, to say the least. meaning that any country's military who, in any way, shape, or form, fucks with them is just asking to have hefty sanctions slapped on them. You would know more than most, or you know more about this more than most, as your country has similar golden geese of your own that the crown has a vested interest in keeping foreign affairs away from and out of their business. And as anyone in the upper echelons of any government on this side of the world knows, when it comes to diplomacy, dwarves don't make threats. Hell, that's why the Red Dragon hasn't gone out of their way, or hasn't gone anywhere near them for so long. Because once upon a time, some 3,000 or so years ago now, the dwarves levied sanctions on GCZ to a diplomacy fiasco about this exact same sort of thing. In fact, while the sanctions were completely ignored for over a millennium by GCG, who was clearly of the mind, the dwarves never leave their kingdom, so they're all bark and no bite, especially considering this was before the subjugation of Rosalia, where there was a whole country on good standing with GCZ and the crossing that stood between them and the dwarves. Strategically speaking, why would they humor sanctions from a country so far away, and with no reasonable means to impact your war efforts elsewhere? Well, the world got their answer some 1,600 years ago. Because, from seemingly nowhere, 2 brigades of dwarven infantry began raining arrows down on the GCG siege encampment outside of the Kibohanan capital. Despite being outnumbered a staggering 6-1, the dwarves trounced the GCG soldiers, most of which had never even seen a dwarf before, let alone know how they fight. So handedly were the dwarves advancing on the siege encampment that the Kibohanan army sallied forth to ride out and meet GCG, performing an impromptu pincer attack. So swift was the GCC's siege broken that the Kibohanan army managed to capture not 1, but 3 enemy generals in the chaos, which were used as bargaining chips to have a great deal of their own high-profile prisoners released, which immediately turned the tide of the invasion. So, despite a rather hilarious language barrier for the overwhelming majority of the two forces, the dwarves and the Kibohanan elves not only thwarted the siege, captured the heads of the enemy army, but they also used the momentum of this absolute victory to push GCG all the way out of Kibohana, before the rest of the Red Dragon Empire even knew what the fuck just happened, giving both the dwarves and elves one hell of a story of unlikely allies brought together by a common enemy and a long overdue payment. You don't fucking stiff the dwarves. You pay your debt.
Yep. And the fact that it was like, what, 1,000 years of just unpaid sanctions?
Yeah, just 1,000 years of unpaid sanctions. The dwarves were like, you know what? Fuck these guys.
Yeah. Loads freaking hand cannon. Alright.
Yep. That actually got one better though for Indiana, the mansion guards or whatever for Indiana's estate. Because he's getting them from Phoenix herself. Like the ones that are being rehabbed or whatever by her. So they have, yeah, you can't, therefore, they can't be bought or anything.
Let's see. Prior to the most recent military campaign, scholars widely believed that this thwarted invasion was the closest GCG came to taking Kibohana, and that the dwarves knew it too. In fact, that is precisely why they went out and sailed so far out of their way, just despite GCZ. It's because the Red Dragon hadn't paid the bill for over 1,000 years. Suffice to say, what the dwarves demanded in compensation for their sanctions was pocket change compared to what the Empire lost in yet another failed invasion of Kibohana. It is worth noting that these sanctions were then promptly paid in full, plus interest, as well as a lengthy apology to the Dwarven King from the GCC Empire not long after, because saving face was not worth risking something like this ever happening ever again. From that day forward, the world came to know that if a dwarven diplomat shows up at your door, you listen the fuck up. Because it doesn't matter how stupidly or how seemingly far away or impractical it may be, they will come to collect, eventually. And at the most inopportune time. But yeah, that's when the world came to learn you don't, you don't stiff the dwarf.
No, you do not.
At that thought,
Reading that again is even more hilarious than the first two times.
sorry, was that?
Reading that again now is even more hilarious than the previous two times.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's
Dwarves
just so
don't fuck around.
petty.
It's so petty, but they don't care. Like, these motherfuckers haven't paid the bill in 1,000 years. Look, suit up, guys. We're gonna sail halfway across the known world just to throw sand in their eyes and kick the mother down. That's so far away from the Dwarven King. But they don't give a fuck.
Nope.
Yeah, with the Indiana guards, though, well, there are those that are on the path of being rehabbed by ENIX, so good luck trying to bribe them or any of that shit.
Honestly, that thought Wendleton stops and turns to Malt. If you would be so kind as to identify yourselves to these gentlemen, then we can continue our discussions inside. Malt gives a brisk nod before stepping forward and allowing 3 of the guards to scan her eye and look her over a bit. Once satisfied, the dwarves exchange a few nods before the nearest one to the door, which you notice to be sized with you tall folk in mind, open the entryway for you all, and then usher you all inside. Once you all enter, you find yourselves now in a small hallway with another door in front of you, a much, much higher security door, which Malt steps forward and begins going through a rather lengthy opening sequence, garnering a crisp reaction from Wendell once the CSS guards have taken their leave and closed the front door behind them. Why do I keep fucking going back to the same fucking...
I don't know.
Alright, here we go. Yeah, so Wendell. What the fuck is this, Malt? The Major looks back to you all while pointing at what looks to be a blast door as she continues. Because whatever that is, this shit ain't on the books. Not that I actually give a fuck anymore anyway, but I'm just kind of impressed that you managed to slip whatever this is past both me and Conley. Matilda then answers for her sister.
If you and Conley don't know what this is, then this is the only thing that did go as planned here in Tinkertown.
As if to punctuate Malt's statement, the door in front of you begins to open, with Wandering Wind quick to quip, speaking more or less what is on everyone's mind, as the several inches thick adamantine blast door slowly swings open. That is a big door. That is one big door. He then quickly looks to Matilda, while pointing at the door candidly. So, just what do you have hiding in this place anyway? Matilda then answers promptly. Here. As she steps into the dark room ahead, reaching for something along the right wall as she does, before you all have to shield your eyes briefly as Magitech lighting then floods the room in front of you all, while at the same time, several audible whirs, hums, and the low rumble of what sounds like Magitech machinery turning on rings out ahead. As your eyes quickly adjust, the room ahead of you reveals that this building you are in is nothing short of a farce. Because what lays before you is no home, but a bunker. Or to be more precise, a massive Magitech workshop with a bunker right smack in the middle of it, making the two-story structure in the center a building within a building, as what would be the third story of it is part of the workshop, flanking it on all sides, including above. Matilda then continues as she begins crossing the space to the central structure, with Malt right behind it.
Malt and I knew that we would be coming back to a den of snakes, ready to take our possessions away from us, due to how much we abused its authority to help the dwarves be prepared for what is to come, as they will be unable to avoid being pulled into war. Suffice to say, with this in mind, establishing a secure base of operations for us and our allies when we return would be the single most important aspect to this homecoming.
She then points to the ground.
This space had to be an absolute secret. So we made a request to the Dwarven King himself that he personally see to it that this space is built with only the highest of security and not involving anyone in or aligned with us gnomes, with a promise that I would give him the full story once my sister returned. However, from what we asked of him, he was able to deduce that things are not as they seem here in Tinkertown, especially of someone of my lineage and high prestige made this request of him. The woman then stops as she brings her hands to her sides, looking at the structure in front of her. When we passed through the Dwarven capital, I mentally reached out to him and explained a bit more of the situation, requesting that he not become involved unless both Malt and I perish, in which case I implored that he come with military force and conquer our settlement, execute the hierarchy, and then subjugate our people, as that will be the only way that our people will ever be free from our oppressors, if my sister and I fail. Pause a few moments as she looks around the workshop. We gnomes are going to owe the dwarves a great deal by the end of this, but it is a small price to pay if it means taking back control over our society, as we gnomes have been marching to the beat of drums held by foreign godly powers for centuries now. And that is what we are here to put an end to. In terms of facial, because as of this moment, we are now officially at war. I am unsure of what Quinn and his team have planned here shortly, but it is clearly of the business that I and the rest of us are not meant to know.
Jalen looks to Wendell.
Major, I would ask that you accompany them to whatever ends their goals are, as you are no stranger to and have no qualms with addressing unsavory subjects. Not to mention your intimate knowledge of the current state of affairs will no doubt be a far greater boon to them than to what I have planned for the rest of us.
Wendell does a crisp salute, but otherwise provides no remark, prompting Matilda to then turn to you, Quinn.
Quinn, I will be leaving you in charge of those with you, as I trust your experience and judgment. With that said, it is probably best that you all be on your way, and that neither of our two groups know what the other is up to until we meet back here at nightfall, where we will take shelter from the storm, brought on by whatever sparks either of us happen to ignite. I do not suspect our enemy to realize that this is where we are hiding for a day or two, and even when they do, they will find it creatively difficult to enter. as I will be dismissing the CSS at midnight, as this conflict is about to become politically charged, and out of respect for them, I will not be putting them in any compromising situations. So we will be on our own as far as defending this location goes come tomorrow.
Hilda takes a look around at the walls around y'all.
It'll be only a matter of time until they find us and try to work their way into this space at night. But that will not be quick, nor will it be quiet, as we are in the middle of a residential zone, which will slow down and minimize their progress of getting into this space, should they do so. That is what this building behind me is for, as well as the plethora of nasty surprises waiting for them out here in the workshop.
Willem gives a small shrug.
So I guess what I am effectively saying is we need to expose or eliminate enough of their leadership out over the next 2 or 3 weeks or so that those who remain see the writing on the wall and surrender willingly while they still can, and keep their heads on their shoulders before they manage to get in here and exhaust our bag of tricks. With that said,
Matilda offers you a small smile.
is there anything you need from us before you and your group go, Quinn?
And we go to this one here, which is awesome. Before you are done updating her, you notice that Wendell holds an amused smile. By the time that you finish up in an equally amused, she speaks up in an equally amused tone. In light of this information, it may be wise to gather some advanced consumables from around here, as we're going to whaling hunting before dark. He points at you candidly. Because the fact of the matter is this, I know not only the identities of all 10 highs of stations, I also know where they are hiding, and who in the crowd around them is on lookout. How do I know all this, you ask? That's easy. I'm the no-good backstabbing bitch that advised where best to hide these people to begin with. She adjusts her glasses with a bit of a smirk. I am a field officer, you know.
Wendell just digging their grave, like whistling.
She's like, you have no idea how fucked these guys are. Like, I know who and where they are.
Yep. Oh my god.
Which one did that put us at? Because I believe that was 37.
The one you just read was 37. There's Intiana and Wendell banter.
Let's see, 37.
Next would be 38 then.
Yep, well, this is your check on Wendell.
Yeah, while you do that,
Yeah,
I'll
that's
be
fine.
right back.
Okay.
Just continue.
Suffice to say, Wendell finds no small degree of amusement that she's been assigned to a task where what she knows all the details about. Matilda couldn't have known just how much Wendell knew and about who, so it was almost on a whim that you all had Wendell assigned to aid you. Though, as Intiana pointed out, it was a very lucky break that she was. Because this woman knows everything about who is where and doing what, and she knows it. She knows that she can feed you the 10 highest of stations on a platter. Though that's clearly not her concern. Her concern is what you all do after that. She's very confident that you will all have time to hunt down some of the big fish once your primary objective is complete. The fact that she suggests to get supplies shows that she's aware of how tough these whales will be to fight. However, due to communication lockdown, you will be able to fight these people early. Alone, without any backup, other than whomever just so happens to be with them at the time. A prospect that Wendell finds amusing, as this is quite the turn of events to say the least. And lets out a small smile at this. Good call, Major. Considering you're our golden goose moving about at the moment, we should get going as soon as we equip ourselves here at the bunker. Going Sunday shopping for equipment and whatnot outside right now will remove the edge we'd have. It intends to Intiana and Wendell proper. Grab what you can, but enough to travel at a rapid pace and without the equipment sticking out like sore thumbs. Divine champions aren't really a problem to what I am. As I can just tell them to get off our backs as long as we're out and about before midnight today. If they don't comply, there will be an unfortunate rapid decline of their health on the immediate horizon. Hence, if that comes to pass, we shouldn't have issues. He then claps his hands together. Gear up! We move out immediately once everyone's done. Rapid movement now. Hurry up, chaps! Yay, we're in the 40s now.
Hold on.
I wonder what that one dude who ran away from the fucking checkpoint was when we arrived here.
Well, how do you think all the guards showed up?
Oh, right.
They wouldn't be like, hey, people are here. They were watching for you.
Okay, thanks.
Like, how do you think the guards knew to show up?
I don't know, they have a scout. They have a scout. Well, yeah, technically they did have a scout.
Yeah, it was that reception. And we have the start of the exchange between Molt and Ellie.
Eva looks on at the poor with wide eyes and a smile. The building's gone well, I see. It wasn't like this just 2 months before. And was everyone situated? At Malt's, as Quinn and Indiana move off to discuss things with Wendell, Eloic promptly walks over to Malt and Matilda. Finally, we're back at home just about. Feels like I just came out of the longest few days of my life. Or is it just me? She beams an excited smile. Anyway, I'm thinking, Malt, once we're set to go, and after stopping by me home, we could take the opportunity soon to do some shopping and some scouting while we're at it. It's been a while since we had a girls' day out. Does that sound good with you? The seamstress then turns to Matilda. Well, imagine you'll be busy yourself, but don't worry. I think I can watch over Malt in your stead. Though before that, Malt, you told me after that first battle against the assassin in the mechanical suit that you wanted to show me something? Something that might help me with hitting better, I imagine?
Malt offers you a wry smile at your comment about the past few days.
I think that it is safe to say that the past few days have been rather chaotic by anyone's standards. So, it is not just you, no.
After your comment to Matilda, the warrior gnome looks with gets a look of realization.
Actually, Eliwick, that gives me an idea.
She then points at you candidly.
Compared to the rest of us, you are the most out of place, which begs the question, just why is this woman with them? Why is this seemingly civilian, again, amongst this group of seasoned adventurers, special agents, and heroes? Simply put, you are an anomaly. Looking from the outside in, you are a plain Jane amongst a group of her betters. So clearly there must be some important reason or deeper meaning as to why you are here with us. With that said, while we know that not only you, but any one of us mortals being here appear to be the will of the goddess of fate, our enemies don't know that.
Malt eyes widen a bit at this, before she comments on her sister's side.
With our having just returned, it goes without saying that our immediate actions today are critical. So everything we do will be us moving with purpose. This especially so for myself. On paper, anyway.
Matilda nods.
Though in reality, Malt is unable to make any meaningful action today, as it would be drawing the public's eye away from Reinstead and I. As the two of us will be making a public address regarding just what happened last night, and what is supposedly still happening, as well as myself addressing the conspiracy that led to the sinking of Explorer 1 and 2. From there, Reinstead will announce that an internal investigation will be underway, effective immediately.
Reinstead gives a crisp nod at this before gesturing a thumb to Matilda and himself. The public's eye will be on the two of us pretty much all day, as well as we'll be very open and transparent with our actions, which then leaves the eye of our enemy. Because, like Malt just said, everything we do today will be us moving with purpose. Which is exactly where you two come in, and this fucking explicable anonymity that apparently, and the apparent mastermind behind our group's grand design. Matilda offers a small grin as she continues for the command.
What I would like for you and Malt to do is to do the exact opposite of this.
Which is to do nothing.
Yep.
Indeed.
It's like, just hang out. Hardest mission ever. Just hang out.
Just hang out and have fun. Have your girls day.
You surely are doing something important. Just fucking around.
Oh, is it very important?
How do you reset the bot? Matilda gestures a hand towards the door across the room.
I want the two of you to just go out and have a girls' day on the town here on the surface. So go catch up with family and friends, do some window shopping, as well as whatever else mundane activity comes to mind.
The commander chuckles at it. It'll make no fucking sense that there is simply no way that this anomaly paired up with the brain behind our operations is just fucking around and lollygagging at such a critical time for us. From our enemy's perspective, there must be a deeper reason behind your actions, as the rest of us will be clearly busting our asses to move with haste for each and everything we do today, except for the two of you. Matilda points to you two candidly with a large smile.
You two will be our stick, the odd ones out, whose actions are so out of place and so out of sync that they will be impossible to ignore, making it abundantly clear to our enemy that they're just dismissing the two of you must be part of what we want them to do. For them to take their eyes off of the two of you while you deliver secret communications, drop-offs masked behind otherwise mundane activities, as well as it is the only thing that makes any degree of logical sense behind your otherwise nonsensical actions.
Reinstead lets out a laugh at this. They'll be so fucking busy with the two of you fucking off and just wasting time that you'll be wasting our enemy's time as they try to figure out just what the fuck the two of you are really up to. When in reality, the two of you are running a smokescreen for whatever Quinn team is off on, as well as pulling the enemy's attention away from Maddie and I.
Malton offers a small smile as she continues on this. Chaos theory dictates that Ellie Wickenrei's actions clearly serve a hidden purpose, which is correct. They do. Though, little do they know, that purpose is to just distract them from everything else that the others are doing that is actually important.
Ryan said, let's add a small roar of laughter at this. Meanwhile, Matilda simply points at her sister with a smile.
Precisely.
Meanwhile, they have a grand conspiracy. What are these two up to? We can't just ignore them. All this shit's happening. It must be to pull attention away from these guys.
It's Mel 2.0.
My mind went to when everyone was told to think of this one random fruit or whatever, and then vowel. 1 G, 2 Y, etc.
The odd one out. They must be doing something important. Which gave them an extra layer of disadvantage, which ultimately fucked them.
Meanwhile, just
Like, it must be this guy.
I'm gonna just fuck around.
Next is 42. Yeah, I still like I'm a cutie pie's quote. If you don't know what the fuck you're doing, how are your enemies supposed to know what the fuck you're doing? Michael Santana, Team Dignitas.
And Eliwick nods with a grin. Right on. It'd be funny to see how far we can lead them on a goose chase. Like I said, I'm looking forward to just a girl's day off with Mart, so that'll suit me just fine. And no peeping toms are going to stop us from having fun. Sure
No
is.
peeping Tom doesn't stop us. That sounds completely different than how it was intended.
It's still
I'm
accurate.
not a pervert. I'm a super pervert.
Sure
And
is.
no perverts are gonna stop us.
Yeah. Voyeurs. She raises a fist in the air before pausing in thought. Yeah, well.
There's gonna be a peeping Tom fight.
And Malt like points off to some corner.
Oh no, a pervert's following us.
All the spies are like, wait, what? How dare you? When it forgets themselves, like, we're no perverts, we're just.
I'm not a pervert. I'm
Then
a
why are
pervert.
you stalking two helpless women?
I'm just happen to be going the same way.
Yeah, you lost me at helpless. I'm sorry.
Gotta love making the bad guys feel awkward and creepy.
Yep.
Some guards that in on her are like, sir, we'd like you to come with us.
Yeah, just gaslighting just gaslight the fucking would-be stalkers into thinking they're just being perverted or whatever.
That would be funny. Like, do I need help?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Continue.
Like, am I really following these guys for any purpose? Like, shouldn't I be helping the other?
Average military mission be like.
Yeah. Eliwick raises a fist in the air before pausing in thought. I'm guessing it'll be a couple of days before it'll be safe for all of us to go visit Granny, like I suggested earlier, Matilda. I'll just send her a message telling her I'm coming by in a day or two and that I'm bringing friends. Little Seamstress then turns to the side for a moment in the direction of where Wendell left before facing Matilda again with a sheepish expression. On a side note, I think I might have offended the Major before when I extended my hand to greet her. I got the sense that she did. I appreciate that, seeing as she up and ignored me after. I'd like to know what I did wrong there, as I'm not the most sorry of military persons. I can went to salute one day, and that's about it. She lets out a small laugh. Major Wendell's a curious woman. Apparently, she's even noticed there was a fairy amongst us, which we still have not seen. Could you also tell me where this fairy apparently is? After a moment, she turns back to the engineer. But yeah, do you want to show me what you mentioned here? Or do we shelve it for after we'd had some time off, you think?
At your comment at the Major, Ryan said waves a hand distance. Oh, don't you worry none about that, lass. As she's probably already long over it. Wendell's just not used to interacting with civilians while out here in work mode, if you catch my drift. This is because military field officers are, in practice, only ever exactly where they need to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. Commander then points at you candidly. As a bit of a tip, keep this in mind. you'll notice that their uniform insignias are very different than other military personnel. This is so that those around them can tell what they are at a glance, and that it is unwise to bother them unless it's something important. And if they are talking to you, you listen the fuck up. Hilda offers a small smile at this.
Basically, think of them on the boots-on-the-ground officers of a military's army, as major is a very universal term in just about any military. This is because it represents a very specific type of leadership role, which is someone who ensures that everyone and everything in an ongoing operation is in working order, such as an artillery brigade, mobile army surgical hospital, a combat engineering platoon, a strategic outpost, and so on, with other similar divisions.
Reinstead points at Matilda as he comments on this. They tend to be really fucking busy, running around whatever shit show they're in charge of. So they have no time for lollygagging or other nonsense. In Wendell's case, her job is ensuring that this fleeting settlement of ours is in working order, which means keeping track of everyone of notable importance outside of the council, as well as what they do and how to best ensure that these people keep on track of their duties. Malt then turns towards you as she addresses as her input as well.
Basically, think of them as the taskmaster who works directly under an overseer.
Reinstead shifts his hand to point at Malt, as if to punctuate his explanation. Her explanation. More or less that, yeah. At your mention of Wendell, noticing Lillian, Reinstead again comment. That would be her false eye. The Major lost her eye during the sinking of Explorer 3. So she had it replaced with a Magitech eye, which also happens to see through most illusions and glamours. He then looks to Malt as he continues. If I'm not mistaken, Malt over there made it for her. Malt brings a hand to her cheek with a difficult expression at this.
While technically I did build it, yes, I was not the one who designed it, or who drafted the schematics.
After you finish, Malt begins walking across the workshop, while waving for you to follow, which you do. And the two of you quickly find yourselves at a draft table in the northwest corner, in the middle of a handful of metal fabrication equipment. Malt holds out a hand towards the floor next to the table, and a large cube of golden light appears near the ground. And as light fades, Malt's chest of holding comes into view. She then speaks up as she opens it and begins fetching what look to be draft papers from it, placing them on the table.
After our encounter with the Magitech armor prototype, as well as the other subsequent combat encounters, I realized that you need a proper weapon, one that is tailored for you, as the crossbow I gave you is customized with myself in mind. Not to mention, it is technically a sidearm.
She then turns to you and offers you a small smile.
So I suppose the first question is, what type of weapon would you like to use? I have a number of different Magitech designs for firearms and crossbows, as well as a few bow prototype designs.
Alright, and
Malt's like, what do you need? Next is 40... 43, 44? No, we just finished 43. So 44?
Yeah, because we skip past a lot of stuff, which is Quinn's.
Yeah. Yeah, so Ellie.
Yep. Yeah, so essentially we follow chronological order, which jumps past a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah.
And we go back to...
Alright, that checks out. The small.
Yeah, I believe we're at 41, I think it was. Ella just gives a nod with a smile. Still.
This is 44.
Yeah, 44. Still, it's all good to bear in mind. Thanks. After going with Maul to discuss armaments, the seamstress places a hand to her chin in thought. Well, the main benefit I've come to appreciate with the bow gun you gave me was the expanded range. Being able to hit targets from far away, and especially while making minimal noise, is important to keep it out of harm's way. And anything that uses a bolt or an arrow will be effective against anything they made from harder stuff. But since if we come across something that's tougher and lacking in obvious holes to poke, or we come up a bit short in firepower, having something that could also pack a punch would be ideal. So it would. She waves a hand while speaking, as if physically grasping at something only she can see, considering her options. Admittedly, I'm not entirely keen on using firearms in engagement with folk, but with how destructive they tend to be. Suffice to say, I'm thankful I had a bit of a mental reset in regards to my past experiences with them. Although I am thinking it may be a bad idea to carry a gun as a side armor, as something I can use against tougher, larger foes, or maybe just find a bit of a destruction is in order. If it can be powerful enough to wreck stuff as needed, but be discreet, and can be adjusted to incapacitate rather than kill foes unless we can help it, that's what I would like to use. I don't know how possible that is to make, but if anyone can do it, it's ye. And then I grab some of the papers to look over. Considering it's ye-mult, I'm curious about what you call prototypes. Whenever we go to ideas or something that doesn't exist yet, it's usually something incredible. Let's take a gander at some of those as well as some firearms designs you have. No. Rightio.
35. I got Malt being a nerd. Holy shit.
Maul listens intently to your thoughts before offering you a small smile shortly after you finish.
I have gathered as much watching you, though I wanted to present you with a few options in the event that you wanted to try something else or had a change of mind.
She then begins going over the different designs with you on the table.
Prior to just over 2 weeks ago now, I would have been more than a little skeptical, as someone told me that projectiles could be propelled at greater distance, velocity, and accuracy than black powder weaponry, though not only without black powder, but with minimal magical influence as well. However, thanks to Luan Tuhan giving me a few small clues, I managed to make a scientific discovery that is going to turn academia's understanding of the prime material plane upside down.
She pauses, going over the schematics and look at you.
Presently, the almost unanimously accepted belief and understanding of physics is that the function of the alchemical atom, or magic matter theory as it is often called, which is the theory that magic is the glue that holds all the tiny little pieces of physical matter together, as magic is found in all things. To what degree depends on what it is, as well as any given number of environmental factors. By all current scientific observations, this appears to be correct.
Maul brings a hand to her chin with a thoughtful look.
However, over the past few decades, a new physics theory has begun to crop up, which is receiving no small amount of pushback and outright dismissal by academia as a whole, which is the theoretical function of a physical atom, or the matter-matter theory, as it is more commonly known presently, which hypothesizes that magic isn't the force that holds the physical world together, but it is in fact physical matter interacting with itself that holds everything together, where a theoretical force other than magic is the glue instead. Though, since no such force could be observed, let alone identified, it has been widely dismissed as ludicrous and is not taken seriously in academia. Even the Elpidamenos were dead set on the magic matter theory being correct, as they did not even question it, and instead operated all of their technology and scientific theory around it being correct. Now, as for myself,
She gives a small shrug.
I was skeptical that such a seemingly outlandish thing could be true, though I wasn't going to outright dismiss the possibility that this could be true, as we have yet to develop technology that can actively observe physical matter at the atomic level. In fact, we only know that atoms even exist due to highly specialized detection magic, which was originally designed as a means to detect potentially toxic gases. However, that isn't what happened the first time it was cast, because it detected impossibly small traces of physical matter, quite literally everywhere, floating in the air. Particles so small that not even our best scientific observation equipment could even observe them, and still cannot to this day. So between our technology not knowing what they look like, let alone what they are composed of, and the fact that there are some things that the magic matter theory simply cannot explain, I wasn't going to just toss out the matter theory, especially when you consider the biggest elephant in the room being, how is it that matter still holds together in an anti-magic field? This question has been largely dismissed as magic working in a way that we do not yet understand.
She softly shakes her head before continuing.
However, that position is kind of intellectually dishonest, because our current understanding of science cannot explain this phenomena at all whatsoever, as it effectively flies in the face of what we know, to the degree that it's very nearly disproves the magic matter theory all by itself, which is where the matter theory started to come in, as it can explain this, sort of. It just doesn't know what this force that holds everything together is, only that it must exist in order for physical matter to not just come apart while in an anti-magic field.
Someone pauses before offering a hint of a wry smile.
Well, just prior to leaving Marina in a last-minute experiment, I performed based on a hunch that Luan Tuan said to me. I discovered what that force is and unintentionally proved the matter-matter theory to be correct in the process, which is that it is lightning energy that holds physical matter together. However, not as we currently know it, because presently we only harness lightning through the use of magic, and a lot of it. Because the more lightning energy we produce, the more magic is consumed in the process to maintain it, which very quickly becomes unsustainable after only a few seconds. She raises a finger. The Alpedamenos coined the term electricity for the process of creating and directing controlled lightning energy, and it is a term that Homang has started to adopt with their own harnessing of lightning energy over the past few years.
She pauses for just a moment before leaning in a bit.
You didn't hear this from me, or from anybody, but Huimang is currently a few steps ahead in the invention and development of electricity. We simply employ it more liberally than they do, as we are better at generating it. However, they are much better at controlling it, which is kind of more important part.
Walt lets out a soft sigh.
We are already starting to see the cracks form in our technological lead due to having so few Tinker Gnomes. Other countries are getting bits and pieces from ours that they happen across, but we lack the manpower needed to research what we managed to gather from them.
And clutches the fist for a few moments with a clear look of anger, but she very quickly catches herself and composes herself.
Us falling behind in research like this is a direct consequence of having so many of us Tinker Gnomes killed off on the Explorer 3. With even another dozen or two, this would not be happening. Though, given the state of things, I am not at all against others learning more about our technology, as our society on this side of the world is effectively lost at the moment. And this is our one chance to get it back. And if we can't...
She looks at you with a rather grim expression, with her shaking her head.
Let's just hope that it doesn't come to that. Anyway, I digress.
Yin returns her attention to the papers, pointing at certain parts that look to be in most of the designs as she continues.
However, while Huimang may be ahead of us at the moment, both they and the Alpedamenos are only half correct, because the process of generating electricity actually does not need magic at all whatsoever. I discovered that not only can electricity be produced with the absence of a constant feed of magic in order to fuel it, but that it can also be directed without the use of magic as well.
Yelzen Malt's demeanor very quickly shifts as she begins to speak on this topic. And it is not long before she offers you a smile.
In other words, you only need magic to start the process. Well, technically you don't need magic for either of these things, but it is far faster and more efficient than to do it manually. However, it's the fact that it can be done manually without magic at all that really sinks the final nail in the coffin of the magic matter theory. Because, given the current understanding of lightning energy, this should be impossible. But it isn't. In fact, not only is it very much possible, it isn't even difficult to replicate once you understand its basic principles. However, this discovery isn't even the bombshell that is going to rock the foundation of academia's understanding of physical matter.
She cups her hands over her chest as her smile grows, and you notice a slowly growing hint of excitement in her voice as well. Something that is very rare to hear coming out of her. As you know more than most people, that Malt doesn't get excited about very many things. In fact, it is this excitement that is the most telling facet about what Malt is sharing with you. Because if this were not true, Malt would not be this excited about it. Let alone, or would not be excited about it, let alone this excited about it. Even so, you cannot help but smile a bit as seeing her like this, as well as her being so chatty. At a side of Malt that is very rarely seen by anyone, really. At that thought, the woman continued.
The big discovery is that there are actually different types of lightning energy, which are produced by physical matter interacting with itself in certain ways. The two that I discovered in this experiment were thermal energy and kinetic energy, which on the surface appears to be largely the same, but when isolated from each other, their differences are stark, to say the least. Kinetic energy is the flow of lightning energy produced when physical matter, as the name suggests, is kinetic. So, in motion and meeting with friction of other physical matter,
And raises two fingers.
if this process is allowed to continue uninterrupted with steadily growing in intensity, a new form of energy begins to take place. Thermal energy, which is formed by the physical atoms of something breaking down.
And then lets out a dainty laugh before continuing.
Sorry, it is just that I find it funny how we have been harnessing thermal energy for ages already, and all without knowing what it is, or even understanding just how it works. Because the simple process of burning wood is a type of thermal energy. It's not just heat being produced, because heat is actually the byproduct of physical atoms interacting and breaking down, meaning that it is effectively lightning energy, albeit harnessed in another form. Because regardless of the type of energy, it all traces back to a common cause, which is friction between physical atoms, not through any means of magic, as magic is not needed for these processes. They simply make them easier to happen.
Jen shakes her head.
With that said, I'm not going to pretend to understand how any of these new energies work exactly, only that they exist, and that I can prove it, because I used harnessing this kinetic energy to start the melting process of Ethereum in just a few short minutes, a seemingly impossible feat, given how absurdly difficult the metal is to melt. However, that is just how kinetic energy works. It can produce levels of heat unlike anything we have ever seen before, and also why it must remain largely a secret for now. As once you understand how it works, it is very easy to replicate. So we will want to exploit our advanced understanding of harnessing this new energy for as long as we can against the Red Dragon Empire, as they will catch on to how it works eventually, which is preferably long after we have already used it to turn the tide of the war.
And crosses her arms with difficult expression.
The holdup now is in the chassis. In other words, how to safely harness kinetic lightning energy without the lightning core simply melting down. I managed to achieve this with my makeshift core before it was sabotaged. However, that was due to a great deal of constant readjustment over several days, not to mention considerable lack of sleep. And I was technically killed during this time as well, so I do not remember exactly what I did, or some of the adjustments that I had made to the core. We will need the actual physical core to examine it to get this data, and why I had to make so many readjustments, though I do believe it was to curb fluctuations in the core due to it being technically unstable. Though I do not remember why. In fact, I am not sure if I even knew why. Now that I really think about it. I was too busy keeping the ship floating for several days on end to really think about the cause. Our finding that cause and fixing it will lead us to the final key needed to unlock the creation and use of lightning cores. Ones that will be more efficient than even the Elpidaminos cores, as I know a truth that they did not.
She shrugged.
So why does all of this matter to you exactly? Well, that is because of this.
She reaches into her jumpsuit and retrieves what looked to be a small metal ball bearing at a glance, then hands it to you. And as you take it, you can almost feel it humming in your hands. The woman then continues.
Now twist that open very slowly, as I've already loosened it a bit.
So, having no idea what this is, but it's clearly important and fragile, you carefully do as instructed, where you hear a small click from inside the object before the humming stops.
Malton very quickly speaks up. Oh, and be sure to open it pointing away from you.
You pause for a brief moment before pulling on both sides to open it away from you, almost as if you're cracking open an egg. And once you do, a small puff of what looks to be steam shoots out from the sphere and ahead of you with a surprisingly loud hiss, given the object's small size. And as when you open the sphere, your eyes immediately widen at what you're looking at, which appears to be in the interior of a lightning core, albeit a teeny tiny little. With the most notable difference being between this and the core back in ALR04, being that these slanted crystals that keep the lightning core in the middle suspended in place are not only on the bottom, but on the top half as well. Which actually makes sense now that you think about it. As wouldn't the lightning crystal easily break if it was not held in place in literally all directions? Malton comments on it.
I have found that in one of the firearms we collected from AALR04. My rifle actually has one that is very similar, but not nearly as small. Which leads me to conclude that this microcore, as it is apparently called, is much more advanced than the one that I have.
She brings a hand to her chin as she looks at the open core in your hand.
The problem I have encountered is how to put them back together without them literally exploding the moment I try to activate them. Which is actually another problem, as I do not know how to properly restart them, as these microcores have no interface whatsoever, almost as if they were created for one singular purpose, and that they can operate in accordance to that purpose. With that said, I can create an interface to direct the power it generates to be repurposed into a new weapon, but adjusting that flow is not possible with my current understanding of how it works. Meaning that reverse engineering these microcores is completely off the table, as we simply do not have the technology or knowledge needed to open something with such tiny components and not break them. Not to mention somehow putting them back together, and in a way that they still work, and work properly, no less. Until we can somehow manage to do all of that, she offers you a rice mug. Creating something like this will be off the table for several decades still, or longer, because these microcores were clearly state-of-the-art Alpidmanos lightning core technology before the sinking. In other words, we need to learn how to walk before we can even begin thinking about how to swim. So we have to just forget about the triathlon we will need to finish in order to make something like this. Which, when you consider how advanced our Noma's technology is in almost every other regard than electricity compared to the rest of the world, well, that is really saying something now, isn't it? He gives a small shrug at this. Though, I suppose these things stand as a testament to just how advanced the Alpidmanos truly were. Looking at it from that angle, I can see why people opted to simply sink the entire continent and be done with it.
I'll point a hand at the core in your hands, candidly she continues.
Because how exactly are you supposed to combat things like this? Frankly, I'm more than a little amazed that the Kibohanans did exactly that, and for as long as they did. All while fighting off the Red Dragon at the same time.
She scratches the side of her head with a bit of a puzzled look.
Kibohanan elves are just built differently, I guess. Which, now that I think about it, I recall Chinami getting all sorts of scrapes, bruises, and cuts during our trip from Marina to Gaoju, whatever the fuck this name is. I can never pronounce this shit. That place. Yeah, that place.
I don't know fucking Chinese either.
Though, I do not recall her ever complaining about them. In fact, she complained very little when she did. And it was mostly about bugs in the heat. So considering she's a noble, I guess that is also saying something about them, but I digress.
Jim points at the schematics laid out on the table.
The weapons we acquired in AAL R04 are ill-suited for the present day. In fact, it is probably best that none of these weapons ever see the light of day. The last thing we need is to give Thagma a reason to come after us in earnest, or to come after our people by proxy. And toting around state-of-the-art Alpidmanos technology like these weapons is a great way for us to do exactly that, as they have spies and informants just about everywhere.
He turns to you.
So, instead, what I plan to do is dismantle them all, learn what I can from them, and then repurpose the cores in a sort of hybrid gnomish technology, as we will have several dozen microcores that can actually use if we do this. Not to mention implementation of what we learn from this technology along the way. These schematics here are conceptual designs based on what I have been able to glean from the few I have already taken apart. with what I already know. Chin points at one of the schematic in particular, which looks to be some sort of elaborate crossbow. Given your earlier thoughts, I think this may be the best fit for you as a primary weapon, and then a firearm similar to my sister's as a sidearm for when something dangerous gets too close, or if something is heavily armored or well defended. She then turns and leans against the table as she brings a hand to her chin while looking you over. And as she does, the whites of her eyes begin to glow a soft blue. Either way, we need you to be better armed for whatever may lie ahead. I see Facella has helped you with your armor, which should go far to help you survive direct combat, though you still need better means to fight back. Seeing as you clearly do not have her divine spark, I can only assume that she figured I would help you in the weapon department, which I intend to do anyway. Where bloop. That took a long time to read. Mold speaks so slow.
Yep.
Yeah. Mold
like
speaks slowly. And
4
there's a
times
lot
as
of-
long as it took.
Yeah, if I write that Matilda, that wouldn't have taken half that much time.
Yep. So, and here now is the insight check that Elwick rolled previously.
Yep.
You can
Like-
tell that Malt is very frustrated with herself as she speaks about what happened, as she's very clearly struggling to remember details, which you know is something Malt generally doesn't experience, as you know her to have a very good memory, like myself. However, when pushed to her limits in a stressful environment, a serious lack of sleep and not enough time to worry about narrowing down the source of a problem, Malt just cannot remember all of the details, as this woman was single-handedly keeping the vessel afloat by ensuring the core didn't melt down despite whatever was wrong with it. You also recall that a few times she went down to engineering to bring her snacks or drink, the woman looked exhausted and stressed out, which is very not Malt, as stress doesn't get to this woman easily. However, we all have our limits, and maintaining Explorer the Third score for days on end was clearly Malt's. Explorer the Third. Jesus.
It's Explorer 3, Roman numeral.
Yes, Explorer 3.
Exploder 3.
Easier. That's easier to say. Convenient. However, shouldn't. Jesus. Yep, Kizm point stripped out. She had no choice in the matter, as she was the only one capable of managing it, as she is the one who made the change based on a hypothetical theory, so only she knew the math to make sure nothing goes wrong. Though you can also tell that there's some regret within her, reflecting back on the situation. Knowing her, she's probably thinking about how if she wouldn't have been able to identify the problem, she would need to fish up the core, and perhaps it would have been more difficult for the conspirators to sink the ship as well. However, with you all recovering the chassis for the core, it will make identifying the problem she encountered much more apparent, and how to avoid it happening again. Not to mention she now knows a more effective way to operate a lightning core, though she still needs both the data housed in the chassis and then the thing itself, as how to stabilize it. Suffice to say, lifting the shipwreck and getting it back to shore will be critically important. Malt's frustration here only makes that all the more apparent. Some manipulating the ship. And 47.
37. What is 37?
Eloic's eyes then widen. Something that small can exist and hold things together? Such an unbelievable discovery that is. But since there's irrefutable evidence of it all, then that's that. You're right. If anti-magic cancels all forms of active magic, Why do we just need turn into puddles when we enter? I can't imagine a scholarly outrage from a revelation like this. The seamstress places a hand on her chin with a puzzled expression. Oh, so the glue that holds us together is actually a form of energy. If it weren't for you telling me this, I'd have a hard time believing it. Else, I'm not sure how that even work. But that's real interesting. She points at the other woman with a grin. Since you're bringing it up now, I can only assume that this earth-shattering revelation about the makeup of our physical worlds opened a whole lot of doors and technological advancements. After Malt's rueful ruminations about the explorer Three's fate, Elwick gently takes Malt's hands in hers and looks her in the eyes with a nod. We'll make sure it won't. She then lets it go as the engineer continues and returns to her papers. Elwick looking visibly intrigued at the new information and smiling at Malt's positive change in demeanor. She can't help but grin at the uncharacteristically enthusiastic display from the engineer. The other woman's excitement is proving very infectious as Elwick jumps with anticipation and her grin widens. You're looking thrilled as a bat? Well, out with it then! What is this bombshell? As Malt describes the differences between kinetic and thermal energy, Elwick places a finger to her cheek in contemplation. So energy that's kinetic is all about motion, and it can turn thermal when enough motion velocity happens? So what you're saying is, if I use my telekinesis to lob a ball through the air, it would eventually generate heat? She does Malt in laughter. It is kinda hilarious for truth. That we're making use of a force every day that nobody knows a nit about. As was a little scary. So what you're saying is, these energies are far stronger than fire or even lightning magic itself? I kinda wonder what would happen if you charged something with lightning and electricity at the same time. Elwick pauses briefly. Ethereum smelting. I think I heard the word Ethereum before. What kind of metal is it? I'm curious. If it's so impossible to work, how exactly did you manage to generate enough heat to smelt it? The up-and-coming entrepreneur then nods vigorously. I am starting to see what we can do with this. The war aside, I am both ecstatic and a little horrified at the opportunities that would rise from this knowledge being spread once it's all over and done with and we figured out how to safely harness this power. There's more industries than just the weapons and armor sort that will be fundamentally transformed by this truth, and we see so many new advancements that I can hardly begin to project it all. I imagine there'll be a lot of resistance, as some may feel threatened by the changes to come. Elwick then places a hand over her chest. But any merchant worth their salt knows the biggest waves create the greatest prospects for the future when you can ride them. Adaptability is in our lifeblood. Elwick gets a look of contemplation. So what led you to try making use of the lightning core a year ago before you knew anything about the new energies? As Maud expresses her frustration with her absent memories of the lightning core, seeing the clear toll the stress had taken on her, the seamstress wraps the other woman in a hug. I was wondering why you were so tuckered out, and I know you're luckily blaming yourself right now for not catching the root of the problem back then, you silly goose. It's so easy to look back and cringe at yourself for what you did nay do. But I'd say you did everything you could with everything you had of time and resources, considering all that was biting at you. Hindsight, maybe 2020, but that's something you never have in the moment, so I wouldn't feel too bad about it. She then lets her go once more satisfied. After being given the strange ball-bearing-like object, Elwick follows the other woman's instruction with a plain look of concern mixed with intrigue, carefully opening the thing pointed at a suitably far corner. With a sudden discharge of steam, Elwick jumps slightly. Huh? How did they do this? You're right, with something this compact, they have to somehow perfected the manufacturing process. Elwick just shakes her head with a small smile. Anyway, it really does paint a picture of an impossibly advanced civilization. Which reminds me, if I have this right, this Elpidominos, they used to live on this continent called Eposkesi Anagenesis, and did a lot behind all the AALs and all these technological marvels, right? And they were sunk, however many years ago. I've heard bits and pieces of their history since I started traveling with the friends, but I didn't really have a complete picture of it all. What exactly happened back then? Shen nods in Malt's rationalization about the appropriated weaponry and playfully points a finger at her. I agree, it's far too risky, but the insight they can grant us in their implementation would be invaluable. The young woman cocks her head slightly in Malt's sudden observation. I'm curious how you could see that with that spell, but yeah, I'm eager to try out what you've got for me.
At your comment of having no idea how energy holds matter together, Walt offers you a wry smile.
Well, that makes two of us. Because, technically speaking, this would be a new form of science that has not yet existed. While this is undoubtedly physics, physics is just an umbrella term that more specific fields of study fall under. I am unsure what this field of study would be called, as it only became a field of science at my confirmation of its existence with replicatable evidence and proof. Prior to that moment, it was merely a theory as far as I am aware.
He gives a small shrug.
However, when it comes time to reveal this evidence, it isn't going to go over very well. Because this is going to not only challenge an almost universally held belief, but also jeopardize the livelihoods of those who have built their entire life's work around concepts relying on the alchemical atom theory being true. However, while I technically possess the academic credentials to claim that I am both a researcher and scientist in the fields of both metallurgy and mineralogy, I am a Magitech engineer first and foremost. Or in other words, I'm not going to be the bearer of this bad news.
At your comment about your telekinesis generating heat, Malt clarifies.
In theory, yes, but in actuality, no. The reason for this is because air transfers heat really well, and there is a lot of it in any given space. So no matter how much friction you're going to be making by moving an object fast in the air, the thermal energy will just be pulled away from the object by the air before it can build up. Now, if you are going to do this in, say, a bucket of water, then the bucket, being made of material that is good at preventing heat and cold from escaping, it would eventually begin to heat up the water, yes.
She brings a hand to her chin.
Though, this also means that if we increase the viscosity of the water by adding something like salt, this would make the heating process even faster. So, telekinetically moving an object in...
Mother Ripley pauses as she snaps her fingers before raising a finger.
I just realized a better example. You know how you take a fresh bowl of ice cream and begin to stir it really hard? How it quickly behind the...
I can't think today.
How it quickly begins to have less and less resistance the more you stir it, until it has about the same thickness as cake batter. This is because the kinetic energy of the atoms that make up the ice cream are being pressed into and rubbed against one another, which generates heat, therefore melting the ice cream much, much faster than if you were to simply leave the ice cream to sit and melt from exposure to room temperature. Though, It's not only that which is happening, but it's also the air around the ice cream transferring energy by pulling some of the cold away from the ice cream on the surface, which you would then mix slightly warmer ice cream deeper into the center of it, which starts to even out the temperature of the entirety of the ice cream, which makes it melt quicker. Walden smiles at them. It is admittedly rather fascinating how something so obvious has been sitting right under our noses all this time, because energy transfer isn't really a thing in the magic matter theory, as it is expressed as heat simply being transferred from one object to another. But in reality, the truth is far more complex and complicated than that, because what is really happening is energy is being transferred from one object to another. And that building energy is what actually generates heat to begin with. The matter theory has explanations for all of the holes in the magic matter theory that currently cannot be explained. Walt brings a hand to her cheek with a small frown. The only problem is getting past the academic dogma. Technically, my sister can do this to an extent with the compass of ill omen. However, that isn't evidence of anything other than what she is speaking on is true. She'll need a scientist to help her present these findings when the time comes. And then shakes her head. However, those are thoughts for another day, as I am getting way ahead of myself as I digress. Now your question of effectively mixing lightning and electricity together, Walt brings her hand to her chin with a thoughtful look. That is a very good question, Eliwick. Both are energy, but two very different kinds. I'm honestly not sure entirely what generates lightning anymore, as the previously held belief of its formation being the result of large concentrations of magic gathering in the air and then quickly being released is false. Then there is electricity, which is a tricky one. It is technically not kinetic energy or thermal energy. Kinetic energy and thermal energy can generate electricity, but that is not what electricity is. It is a different classification, one that I'm not even sure what to call, honestly. We simply do not know enough about it yet. She then opens a pocket in her jumpsuit before reaching into it and pulling out what you can tell at a glance is a small lightning crystal, which she then holds between her fingers. Yeah, she holds the lightning crystal between her fingers. This all means that lightning crystals actually do not contain lightning in them at all, because lightning can be drawn from them just by a small spark of magic to begin the transferring of lightning, originating from the crystal to another object. However, all the magic is doing is starting the process, as it is not needed to do anything else once the transfer begins, meaning that it would be akin to using a fire starter to light a fire. Once the fire is lit, the fire starter is no longer needed, as the thermal energy of the fire handles the rest by generating new fire with whatever fuel source it is burning. After a few moments, a look of realization dawns on the woman. It's electricity. Lightning crystals contain electricity, which can then become lightning when it's lit with magic. If this is true, which I have been confirmed that it is, this would then mean that lightning is kinetic energy. But if that is the case, then how is it even formed in nature?
It's just like, wait, everything we know about this has been turned upside down. We no longer know how this works.
Yeah,
Like we
it's a
need
whole new
better
world.
science. I'm all just realizing, like, oh shit, I just broke nature. I broke science. How fake.
Help! Oh my god. When you just casually come to the realization that you broke science.
Malt gives a small shrug at this dead end.
I do not know nearly enough about meteorology to even begin to make guesses, though I am very quickly finding that for every question I am able to deduce an answer for, it just creates even more questions than I started with.
Malt's like, okay, I figured this out, but what about that and that? I don't know. I'm good with science, but it's like, I only know so much science.
Why is there 6 more questions now?
Why is there 6 more questions needing 4 more fields of science that I am not a part of?
Yep.
Like, I can't explain this shit. I don't know now.
Oh my god. Alt.
June shakes her head.
Anyway, these are questions best left for those with the capacity to answer them, as I am getting ahead of myself again. But they are still very fascinating questions nonetheless.
As you mentioned of Ethereum, the woman gets another look of realization.
Oh, that is right. You no doubt heard us make mention of Ethereum a few times back in the mines, but none of us ever went into the details of what exactly it is. Which would be because we all knew what it was, which is a type of metal ore that, dare I say, nearly impervious to heat. Smelting it takes weeks of being exposed to a constant intense heat in a specialized forge for it to melt. Now, as far as what else is special about it, it is extremely hard, around the same hardness of adamantine, but almost as light as mithril, but not quite.
She pauses for a brief moment, seemingly as if trying to recall details before continuing shortly.
It is almost as good at holding enchantments as gold, as it is very magic absorbent. However, it possesses a trait that is unique to it, which is, provided the metal isn't enchanted, magic can pass through it almost as if it isn't even there. Which is why back in AAL R04, the overwhelming majority of the remains of the facility was Ethereum and lead, for the exact opposite reasons.
Yeah, because it's like the magic passes right through Ethereum, but can't get through lead. So it's like the two things left for the exact opposite reason.
It's like, hold on, what the hell's this?
She gives a slow shrug.
More or less, it's sort of a miracle metal that does it all, but is presently too difficult to smelt and work to be used practically. Her expression then shifts into a small smile as she continues. However, what I have learned about Ethereum is that it is almost impervious to thermal energy. Thermal energy creates even more thermal energy by burning a fuel source from the outside in, until a material contains enough thermal energy that either the metal melts, like metal and ice, burns wood and oil, or transforms into something else, like wood becoming charcoal. She then shakes her head. However, throwing thermal energy at Ethereum isn't how it is melted. Granted, just about anything can be melted, burned, or transformed if enough thermal energy is applied to it for long enough. though Ethereum is effectively a case study as one of the most thermal energy resistant materials in known existence. So, how is something almost impervious to thermal energy melted then? She raises a finger where her smile grows a bit. By melting it with kinetic energy. The woman then retrieves from her jumpsuit pocket what looks to be a small piece of light purple metal with a beautiful dark purple sheen to it as it moves in the light at different angles, before then holding it out as she continues. The fundamental flaw of smelting with thermal energy appears to be that it can only penetrate material from the outside in, meaning that it is indirectly generating heat in the metal. So with a material like this piece of Ethereum that is extremely thermal resistant, this process is going to take a very, very long time. And if the heat being applied to it were to ever stop, it would very quickly begin to cool, as Ethereum does not hold heat well at all, to the degree that it is almost as if it repels it, though this is much more easily shown than explained. So touch this for a moment. You reach forward and touch. Here, touch this metal. You reach forward and touch the metal just want to touch a small piece of metal for a few seconds, finding that it is actually surprisingly cold. Malt then retrieves a fire starter from her jumpsuit and gives it a few flicks before it produces a flame, which she then holds under the Ethereum for about a minute before holding the metal out again. You then, somewhat hesitantly, reach out and touch it, as in your mind, there's no way something could be exposed to a direct flame for that long and not be hot. However, as you touch it, you find that that is not the case. Not at all. Because despite the direct contact to a flame for so long, you do not notice any discernible difference in temperature from when you first touched the metal to you touching it now. Simply put, it is just as cold as it was the first time, which is wild. Because, dare you say, this feels almost as if it defies the very laws of nature with how much it can shrug off heat. Though, surprisingly, Malt echoes your thoughts. It feels unnatural, doesn't it? Well, that would be because it actually is an unnatural material. Ethereum only forms around AALs due to the degree of ether they would pull in from the Ethereum plane, which makes the metal extremely valuable despite its seeming uselessness. At my advice, Ruby's family has been collecting as much of it as they can, because it's going to become priceless once we gnomes have a proper way to smelt it. Sure, it takes a while for us to smelt it, but we can reliably do so thanks to our technology. However, there is an even better way.
She then retrieves a second piece of Ethereum from her jumpsuit and sits it on the table, while holding it in place with her left hand, before the woman then looks to you.
When I hold this out to you again, I need you to touch it quickly.
You give a small nod, curious as to what exactly she is about to do. Where the woman then takes and presses the two together, and then starts rubbing the metal in her right hand over the other piece vigorously, with Malt clearly putting her body weight into it. After about a minute of doing this, swiftly holds the metal in holds it to you, her right hand out to you. I can read. But she wastes no time in reaching out to touch, and the sensation you're met with is rather surprising. The metal is actually hot. Not burning hot, but certainly not merely warm either. though you notice the heat sensation very quickly begins to fade to a warm sensation after just a few seconds. And after a few more, it begins to feel about room temperature before beginning to cool to the touch after a few more moments. And in what couldn't have been more than 15 to 20 seconds, the metal is back to being as cold as the first time you touched it. Suffice to say, both of these things are as surprising. Malt figured out a way to heat the metal where fire failed to do so, and just how crazy fast this metal cools. Countless practical uses for this material, countless practical uses for a material this heat and fire resistant race through your mind as your merchant mind all at once as you think of so many different ways this could be used. The Malt's voice quickly pulls you back to reality. What was different here is that kinetic energy applies heat directly to a material, meaning that the source of the thermal energy that is being generated is the metal itself. In other words, the Ethereum heating up from the inside out and the outside in at the same time. Didn't shoot you a small grin. So then, what do you suppose would happen if you channeled either lightning or electricity through this metal? Lightning is notorious for rapidly heating something inside and out at the same time. So, the heat it generates is rapidly dispersed through the creature or object it touches almost instantly, which is why extremely powerful lightning can literally disintegrate things that are not very dense. Then points to Ethereum. So what then happens if you expose something that is dense to that degree of kinetic energy? After a few moments, the moment offers a somewhat large smile. It begins to melt. Lightning would do the trick to very quickly smelt Ethereum. However, it is too difficult to sustain that degree of energy for very long. Electricity, on the other hand, while not as powerful as lightning, is actually sustainable even at... Malt trails off with a look of realization, which is quickly replaced by a perplexed expression as she scratches the side of her head. We actually do not have a word for this concept yet.
It's like, it does something. I don't
But
know,
hey,
we don't have a word for that.
But hey, that's kind of how science works, isn't it? It's like, I came up with a thing. It's like, what's it called?
I'm not so far yet.
I
Yeah,
haven't thought that far ahead yet.
exactly.
We do not have a word for this concept yet, because adjusting the power of a steady stream of electricity was deemed to be infeasible at best and impossible at worst. The only way to do so would be using an either larger or smaller lightning crystal, but I digress, as there are more important questions. Are more questions for later?
She then shakes her head before continue.
Anyway, what this all means is that Ethereum can easily be exposed to the flow of electricity from a lightning crystal long enough in order to melt. As from the 3 experiments I have performed with this metal and ore so far, the Ethereum will melt long before even a small crystal like the one I showed you earlier needs to rest to recharge.
She brings a hand to her chin.
The bottleneck is that lightning crystals take a very long time to recharge, several months upwards to a few years for larger crystals. However, that is where lightning cores come in, because my 3rd experiment, I performed it within a decently large crystal I purchased from a source of dubious legality while we were in Gaojinggu. Now, as far as the results of that experiment, Malt trails off before opening one of the larger pockets in her jumpsuit, which you know to be a nifty pocket of holding, like Matilda's, where she then pulls out not one, but 3 proper ingots of the same metal as the 2 chunks of metal already on the table, and places the ingots lined up side by side before turning to you with a small smile. Suffice to say, the writing is on the wall. Electricity is the future, and the future is now. Because I was able to create these 3 ingots in just over an hour using the large crystal, and could have actually made more had I had more Ethereum on hand at the time. She nods a serious expression. I need you to not tell anyone about this, as I'm not at all concerned about sharing this information with our allies. However, evidence suggests that there are moles in House Pandoria and the Killing's Blades. So until we are able to clean house here in Tinkertown and in 2 other organizations, this is a secret we are only able to entrust to the Dwarven Smiths, whom the Dwarven King has personally vouched for. Because behind closed doors, the King strongly opposes GCG. However, he cannot say as much on the record just yet. Not until GCG gives him a large enough reason to publicly declare his position, as unfortunately, his detractors would simply label this as warmongering or foolishness to directly oppose such a powerful force as the Red Dragon Empire unprovoked. The woman gives a slow shrug. So, until he is given a reason, his hands are tied. Though it is reassuring to know that we have a powerful ally on our side for once the war really starts to take off. At your reassurance, she tries her best on the Explorer. On your reassurance, she tried her best on Explorer 3. Malt offers you a genuine smile. Thanks, Eliwick. That really means a lot to me. She looks elsewhere in the workshop for a few moments before back to you. It looks like Quinn is about to be done informing Wendell on their operation. And judging by their looking my way, they undoubtedly plan to ask me about supplies they can use. With that said, I'm gonna have to ask you to wait here, as this shouldn't take more than an hour. Though in the meantime, I do have something important for you to do. She then points at you candidly. I need your help in coming up with some marketable products made from or with Ethereum, preferably those targeted at nobility and royalty, because we're going to need to line our coffers and fuel our war chests before long. And the best way to do that will be to sell some of the excess Ethereum, while at the same time making GCG believe that we have discovered the secrets of smelting Ethereum, especially if we can afford to use it in such frivolous things such as high-class luxury goods. However, despite their best efforts, their searching will find no source of our smelting Ethereum any way other than these products. He raises a finger with a slow wink. So, as the saying goes, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Because we will be weak for the first quarter, if not half or more of the war against the Red Dragon, as it won't be until we can begin reliably fielding these new weapons, armor, and other equipment that the tide would truly begin to turn in our favor, especially when it comes time to take West GCG, as that is going to be hell on Diotethus.
The woman offers a wry smile.
Here's hoping Kiwohana can hold out long enough for us to come to their aid, as we will not be able to do so until we have secured South GCG.
She then shakes her head.
Anyway, they are heading this way, so that is my cue to go. We'll continue this talk later this evening when we come back here, as I have other things to discuss regarding your psionic abilities, though that will take a bit of time. However, time is a commodity that we do not have much of at this moment. With that said, I will be back soon.
So Jelwick would just give her a Chris salute and be like, I'll be right doing it. Take care. I never wrote a response, but that's essentially what it would be.
Yeah. Bless. That took a while.
Suffice to say,
Speaking in Malt's voice is kind of exhausting.
I can imagine.
Like slower voices are hell because you need to focus and
You need to focus on the
you need
nuance.
to and you need to constantly enunciate. That's the biggest issue. It's not a natural way of speaking. You need to constantly be aware of your own voice and really go with the syllables.
Character voices in general can be a challenge, but when you have to go out of your way to speak in an unnatural fashion, like you say, yeah, that's even more.
Yeah, Malt doesn't speak very fast because she's just, Malt.
Just malt, yeah.
She's a potato. What number are we at?
I don't remember.
That I believe was
I think
48
we're
or
at 40.
49. I keep losing my
it-
place, but it was out of 49.
Yeah, 49, the start of the ALR scene.
Okay, it's that.
Isn't
Which
it?
we'll save for that for tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's a lot of Malt in there.
Yes, there is.
I'm gonna need a break before I can do any more of that.
Yep. I will
Is it-
pick up
is it
on there
49?
next time. Now the moment of truth.